Hey, what's up, Global Village? Okay, let's talk about Donald Trump and the relationship he has with the American public. Now, there's a whole lot that could be said about this topic, but I want to focus on a few specific points here that, quite frankly, bothers me in a sort of morbidly fascinated sort of way. So, first of all, let's talk about the reality of the American economy, because the reality is America is the most wealthy country in the world. Uh, it is a little odd then that the American public are so incredibly unhappy with their current economic system. So, what's really going on? So, first of all, let's understand that the US dollar is obviously what is used on the international marketplace, which puts America in a uniquely advantageous position. So, in other words, America gets to just print US dollars and then sell bonds on the international market to fund the US dollars, which means they can generate a tremendous amount of cash flow without suffering the kind of catastrophic inflation that any other country would suffer were they to just start printing large amounts of their local currency. So, admittedly, when America does that, they go further and further into debt because they do have to pay those bonds back with interest eventually. But this is something that will take. These are loans that are spread out over decades, so they can kind of defer the cost of printing all that money, and as I said, avoid the inflation that you would normally get with it. The other thing to consider here is that American businesses have become incredibly wealthy by doing offshore manufacturing. So they build these sweatshops overseas where the employees are paid slave wages and get to enjoy almost no benefits. They don't get health insurance, they don't get holidays, and they get paid extremely low wages, something that would simply not be possible in America. And despite how Americans are acting as if overseas people are stealing all their jobs, what is actually happening is that wealthy American businesses are exploiting the overseas labour market to be able to produce goods extremely cheaply and then be able to sell them both to Americans and to people overseas at a much lower cost while still making a tremendous amount of profit. But this is not the story that Americans believe. As I said, Americans believe that overseas countries are stealing their jobs, in inverted commas, and Trump is the man to bring those jobs back through the blunt force trauma of tariffs, something that is simply not going to work and is going to actually force international markets to reshape themselves to increasingly exclude America from their international trade deals. So America will indeed become more isolated, but in a way that financially disadvantages it. Will the overseas markets also suffer? Absolutely. But Trump has become so unreliable, you cannot trust him at his word. He is likely to break contracts and deals after they've been made. You cannot deal with someone like that. So what he's doing is destroying America's economy because their ability to engage in the international market is being eroded simply because the international market can no longer trust them. So the problem in America isn't immigrants, it's not people stealing their jobs, because of course that's the other thing America is doing, is it's using undocumented immigrants to do all the really low-cost, low-wage jobs that typical Americans just wouldn't be willing to accept. So that is another form of foreign exploitation, and again, that has all been turned on its head as now Americans are now blaming these people for all their woes when it really couldn't be further from the truth. It's part of what actually makes America function the way it does. The point here is Americans are literally mad for all the wrong reasons. And if they think Donald Trump is going to fix the problem, no, he's only making it worse. He is, of course, making the ultra-rich wealthier. So these Americans who are exploiting foreign markets are just getting richer and richer because they're getting better tax breaks. I mean, it's insanity, actually. And I think some of the blame here, or a lot of the blame here, has to go with the American public themselves for being so gullible and so uneducated about the state of their own economy and where the inequality lies. This idea of the American dream that if you work hard and then you're going to, every American has a chance to become the president and all of this sort of nonsense. It's just a story, a fantasy that the American people are being told to placate them and keep them in some sort of ideological fantasy world that is just allowing the wealthy to continue to exploit them, and then to explain to them that they should be angry about all the wrong things. Yeah, it is a complete insanity. Anyway, that's just a rant I wanted to have, because as I listen to Americans continue to debate this, it just baffles me that they are incapable of seeing what's really going on here. I would also point out one other thing that I find particularly obnoxious about the American mentality in general, is their pathological hatred towards any kind of social policy. This idea that every American must pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, and that social policy, uplifting those in a disadvantaged position, is some kind of dark communist plot. It basically, what it speaks to is a fundamental lack of humanity, and in the end it is only going to continue to make their society a more barbaric and inhumane place to live. And I think we can witness that through the creation of Alligator Alcatraz, which really is quite abhorrent, and from someone from the outside looking in, just makes America to look more and more like some sort of pathological, psychotic country that more and more lacks any basic semblance of humanity. Anyway, that was my rant. Bendy out.